All right. Even before I talk with the fart noise, I love it. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to This Pink Cloud. We are a show that is on multiple pathways to recovery, mental health, all that kind of good stuff. Sitting in with me, the board op extraordinaire slash co-host slash general jackass. Ladies and gentlemen, Chad Lamont.
Hey guys, I just want to say,
I just want to say,
hope your day's going good.
and if you need a little strength,
I'm
eat
over-
a little apple.
I'm here
Eat a little-
next to my bestest friend, Kelly, TJ Kelly Beaver. Welcome to this pink cloud.
You can tell when Chad has had enough caffeine, dude, to where he just gets like caffeine delirium.
Yeah, man, I have fun. We like to have fun here. It's a
We
fun.
do.
It's a
We
fun
do.
show
It's
on fun recovery.
It's good. It's okay. It's fun. Coming in from the far north, Denton County, the LPC, LCDC. Also, you are a RSPS supervisor.
Peer specialist
PSS.
supervisor.
What?
I did that because Kelly got the name wrong.
Well, there we go.
PSS, yes.
There we go. But basically, you supported my RSPS.
Yes, I birth coaches.
There you go. Perfect. Love
That's
it.
what's up.
But anyway, the king of the north, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dusty Burrows.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. It's good to be back. It's good to see this apple eating stuff going on. It's a lot of healthiness going on around
this
here.
caffeine intake.
Caffeine
lot
and
of,
apples, man.
Yeah,
There's
right.
a lot of hydration and a lot of fruit, and I'm proud of you guys for that.
All right,
Appreciate it,
thank you,
man.
Thank you. But coming in from, I guess you're in L.A. now. Our guest is Frank, and it's Meeink, but it's spelled Meeink, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So Frank Meeink, you are actually a friend of Shawnee Cameras, and that's how we got you on the show. And you have an interesting backstory to do with neo-Nazi and being a tribe member and all that stuff. But I don't want to step on your story too much. So Frank, why don't you kind of tell the audience a little bit about your backstory and how it relates to your recovery?
Absolutely. So I was actually born and raised in Philly. So I was raised kind of in the South Philly area, which is kind of ethnically Irish, Italian. We had like a big Cambodian section.
And it's
then,
also
like,
where the Fresh Prince is from, right?
No, that's West Philly.
Oh, West
So-
Philly, okay. Right.
But that comes into play later on.
All right.
But yeah, that was West Philly, because West Philly, born and raised on the playground where I spent most of my days chilling out maximum. That's West Philly.
Okay.
Which I later on moved into that neighborhood, and that's part of my story.
All right.
But was raised there. So my mom, real quick story. My mom, during the 70s, she was from an Irish Catholic upbringing and wanted to rebel from her family. She was the middle child of a 7-kid family, so she was the 4th child. So she had huge middle child syndrome, and she rebelled by going out at the time and getting with the bad boy. And the bad boys of that time were what we would call Degos, the Italians. And so she meets my dad. He was also part Irish too, but he was mostly Italian and looked Italian and had an Italian last name, and he looked like Rocky Balboa. And so my dad was this little drug dealing Italian guy, pretty badass guy. And my mom really, liked the bad boy. So they come to be, they have a relationship, and obviously it's through drugs and alcohol. My dad was a dealer, my mom was a customer, and I come to be. But that didn't last long. My mom eventually left him in the mixed neighborhood. Now my dad lives up in the southwest West Philly area. That's the Fresh Prince area. So my dad lives in like kind of a mostly black neighborhood, but like a little alcove of like some Irish and Italian people. And that's how Philly set up in those little grids of neighborhoods. So anyway, my mom leaves him, goes back to South Philly. And the reason why I don't have my dad's last name is because when we moved back to the Irish neighborhood, she didn't want me being raised in an Irish neighborhood with a Dego last name, because then I would just be known as Frankie the Dego. Like that would be it. That'd be my nickname for life. And that's just, so the Catholic Church, which was all Irish, And the neighborhood and my parents, my grandparents, all that, all were like, yeah, let's give him our old maiden name, Meeink, which really comes to play part in my story. So anyway, me and my mom, we struggle at times. She struggled. I just happened to be a little a part of the struggle.
Right.
And we were on welfare and being on food stamps. And, I hated, I hated being on food stamps. I was kind of embarrassed a little bit of that type of stuff from my mom. I knew my mom still partied. I mean, I remember seeing like razor blades and half cut straws in our bathroom a lot, little things like that. So I knew my mom, I knew there was some, plus anytime like at night, if I heard Aqualung by Jethro Tull come on, I noticed the house would start smelling funny,
Right. Yeah.
So she had her own little demons. Obviously. So, but look, I don't know if any of you guys ever grew up on welfare or food stamps, but when you go to the corner deli in Philly, everyone knows your business. I mean, your little corner delis, and I would have to go there with food stamps. And when you got to pull them food stamps out of the booklet in front of everybody, man, it's just embarrassing.
Sure.
And and I always tell it, man. Every time I go pull out the food stamps, the hottest girl in my neighborhood come walking.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So, just embarrassed.
Sure.
But I always kind of had this trust in my mom. I knew we struggled. I knew we didn't have all the money in the world, and I was kind of cool. Like I understood that, so it wasn't a disrespectful, rebellious kid because of it. But she wound up getting married, and she met up with a man. He moved in right away. Of course, he was a drug addict, alcoholic too. And he was from the neighborhood, the Irish neighborhood. And he knew I was Italian. He used to always make comments about he's going to beat the Dago out of me, beat the Italian out of me.
Right.
So, and he tried, man. He literally tried. And
wow.
Just to tell you what it was like, man, I used to go to school. In that time, I was, he moved in when I was probably like 9 or 10. But yeah, probably like 9 or 10. He moved in, and I was going to school, and now I was always grounded. I was always punished by this guy. I mean, it was just I lived in a home with a bully,
right?
And so when I would go to school is when I would act out, and I would always get in trouble. And our school back then, they would just kick you out of school because you had to go home. You couldn't be out in our neighborhood during school hours without someone calling someone in your family and going, "Why is Frank out of school during school hour?" I mean, really, it was like that in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I'd always have to go home and get my punishment. But most days, guys, when I would go home, man, and this is no lie, no exaggeration, majority of the days I had to go home, I used to hope I would get hit by a car. Like, not to die. I didn't want to die. I knew, because everyone in South Philly gets hit by cars. If you've ever been there, it's just little small streets.
It's a thing. It's a
thing.
It's a thing. South Philly.
I mean, everyone does it.
Right.
And I literally was a kid that wanted to be hit by a car. And again, if you got hit by a car, it was usually like a cousin or a second cousin or a third cousin that ran you over. I mean, because we're all related down there. So you can't sue nobody.
Right.
And anyway, and I would always go to get hit by that car, man. And that self-preservation would always kick in. Wow. And the thing I have to tell you is that really plays part of my story is I had these legs, man, that made me so unbelievably fast as a kid. Like I was a just born and bred athlete. It was part of my deal. Sorry, there's cops going by. I don't know if you can hear it. It's LA.
We're used to it.
So yeah. So I had these legs, man, that were always unbelievably fast. So anytime that car would come to hit me, man, I would just real quickly juke out of the way right before it hit me every time. So here's the only kid that wants to be hit by a car, and I can't get hit by a car. Right. So I would go home feeling like a loser, man. Like, man, I can't even get hit by a car, right?
Well, but you were doing that so you would avoid the bullying at home, right?
Yeah. Like I just wanted to go to a hospital for the night. Like I'd rather go to a hospital and lay in a hospital bed and be able to watch TV because I wasn't allowed to watch TV in my house. I thought I could maybe hopefully get hit on the night there was a Flyers game on TV so I could at least watch my Flyers,
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I seriously thought about this shit pretty regularly.
I like that, yeah. At least you were you were trying to time it out, dude. There was a little intention and thought that went behind it.
Yeah, I was like hoping they would have a big game with the Red Wings or Rangers or something. I'd be like, oh, definitely we should get it tonight. But after about 4 years of that not happening, man, I would go home, and one day I got kicked out of school, and I was walking home, and my stepfather was waiting for me. He beat the living crap out of me again, and he said the words he'd been dying to say to me. And he had said these words to me off and on throughout this relationship with my mom, is that they don't want me there no more. I mean, he literally would say that. And he was like, pack your shit. You're going to move with your real dad. That stupid Dago, blah, blah, blah. I ramble on about my dad and how I was worthless and how I was just nothing but a ditch digger. And he'd go on and on. I'm going to be worthless like my dad, my real dad. So you're going to move, you're going to, and I remember packing up my stuff, and it was like, I was so conflicted on my feelings.
How old were you at this time?
I was 13.
Okay, wow.
Just turned 13.
Wow.
So
that's pretty hard when you have like the adult in your life telling you to pack up and hit the bricks at 13. You know,
and my mom wasn't even around. She let him do that to me that day. Like,
wow.
He said it out that my mom was going to be out of the house so that he can do this to me. So I pack up all my stuff and I move with my real dad. So my real dad lives up, like I said, Southwest West Philly. So now I got to change schools. Middle of the school year, I got to change schools to this all black school, like this West Philly. It's called Pepper Middle School. You can Google it. Anyone that's listening to this can Google Pepper Middle School in Philadelphia. They eventually closed the school due to the violence and just the unsustainability of the school itself. And it was this nice, big, beautiful school. I mean, it was built beautifully. It was just built on top of a pig farm that sank like 3 inches every year more deeper into the mud because it was not, typical city Philadelphia bullshit.
Right.
So anyway, I go to this school, and now I'm the new kid in the school. I'm a white kid, let alone I'm kind of a skateboarder, punk rock athlete kid. I'm kind of like all over the place,
Right.
But that's who I was. And I show up at the school and I try out for the baseball team. I try out for all these sports, but during school hours and outside of school hours, man, it just wasn't safe at my school, man. Especially if you were white. If you were white or you were a smart black kid, man, you need to duck and run a lot.
Or hide it. But you really couldn't do that with the white kid. But on the smart tip, dude, you'd have to hide that.
Yeah. I mean, seriously,
you have to hide your intelligence, dude.
If you answered too many questions right in our class,
all right,
someone was yell out, "Who are you? What was his name? Urkel? What are you, Urkel? Shut up!" So,
I love that. That's a good one, actually.
Yeah. So anyway, I try out for the baseball team. I make the baseball team at this school, and I was the first like white player in like years. I was like the reverse Jackie Robinson. Like everyone. And when you would get done playing, that was like later after school. So, man, I had to like go home all by myself a lot. And you had to go through the housing projects to get to school. And I had to get back to the trolley to go take the trolley up to my dad's neighborhood. And, it was just hard and it was scary. The boys' rooms were scary. I mean, if you were a boy and you had to drop a deuce, man, you held that all day. You didn't go,
Right. Yeah.
You're very vulnerable in that situation.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So anyway, I just started getting sick of going to school. So I started cutting school. And I would run downtown the center city, Philly all the time. And I'll just tell you this real quick, funny stories. I used to run the center city, Philly all the time because you could get on the trolley and go up to my school, or you can get on the trolley and go the other way, and it would take you right to center city, Philly. And I would do that. And when I would get down there, I'd always sneak in Ben Franklin's house. I would wait because it was during school hours. So there was a lot of school trips going through his house and his museum. And I would sit at the back door. And as soon as the class would open the door, I would sneak in and go around and, see all the exhibits. And I could tell you all about Ben Franklin, all his exhibits.
That's funny, man.
And so fast forward just real quick, a typical alcoholic story is a year later, I'm back at school. I go back to school for a very brief time again. And while I'm at school, they tell us, hey, I wasn't at Pepper anymore. I went back to school in my mom's neighborhood. And I'm back at the school. And they're telling us, we're going to go to Ben Franklin Museum. So I'm telling everybody in my class, because I got to be a big shot. I got to be I'm already a born bred alcoholic. I need all the attention. So I'm telling everybody, I know that exhibit. I sneak in there all the time. I know every little, I know all the little things. Wait until you see this. Wait till you see that. I'm bragging all about what I know about Franklin. And I keep telling everyone, I sneak in. I go in the back door, Anyway, we get there for the class visit and you get off the bus and you're walking in the front door. Big sign right at the front door. A huge sign. Free admissions.
Right.
So years, I was sneaking into someplace I could just walk in the front door.
Right.
Is that after I seen that free admission sign, I thought it was the worst museum ever. But when I was sneaking in, I thought it was amazing. And because I was feeling the knowledge.
Yeah, because you were doing something. Yeah, I gotcha.
The long as I was stealing the knowledge, I was cool. But once
Right.
you were just teaching, like, come on.
Once I found out it wasn't illegal, then it was like the fun was gone.
It was all gone.
Yeah.
So anyway, man, I graduate I go back to my older school where I was at the all black school. They wound up graduating me, even though I missed like the last 40 days of school. They still graduated me on the 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I was 7th grade at the time. And my dad said I could do whatever I want for the summer. So since I graduated, he was kind of mad about the last 40 days of being missing. But since I graduated, he was like, I don't care.
Right.
I had a family on my mom's side. They lived up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, up in that Lancaster, Pennsylvania area. Don't know if any of you know that area, but it's very, it's like the Amish turf.
Yeah,
you go up there,
sure.
Amish Mennonite like really live up there to really control that area. You know, to me, to control that area. It's just
their pimp hand is very strong.
Yeah, like they really, like I always say, man, they really turn butter.
Right.
They don't isn't Williamsburg or whatever. They really turn butter and live that way, not reenacting bullshit. It's real. So my cousin lived up there. They're not Amish, obviously. They're part of my family, and and I go up there. And by this time, guys, just to talk about drinking, I've been drinking my whole life in this neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So a neighborhood I grew up in South Philly, there was no drinking age because there was tons of men's clubs they had we have a parade in Philadelphia called the Mummers Day Parade, and it's from my neighborhood. And that Mummers Day Parade, all the people that are part of the parade have privately owned men's clubs all up and down the streets in my neighborhood. And they're just these houses that they turn into like little speakeasy bars.
All right.
And everybody drinks at them, and they're always throwing parties to raise money for their costumes for years. So they don't.
What are all like the adults like? Give Frankie a little beer.
Yeah. And you would go into the parties. There was wedding. They'd rent out for wedding, every communion party, every confirmation, every baptism. All these places always get rented out, and there's just open parties all the time.
Right. Yeah.
So being carded for booze, and plus my dad had a bar up in Southwest Philly, so being carded was so foreign to me growing up.
Right.
So I always was drinking, and right before I moved my dad's neighborhood, right before I went up to Lancaster that year, I was sitting there and I was drinking with the older boys, drinking 40 ounces. I was in my dad's neighborhood, so it's kind of this mixed group of kids, black kids, some white kids. We were sitting on the street corner because that's what you do in Philly, not to sound like, but that's just what everyone does. We hang on street corners. I was hanging at this one place. It was kind of a street corner, and we were all hanging there. Kid walked by us. We said what's up to each other. There was a skating rink, a roller skating rink, about 50 feet from where we all hung, or maybe 50 yards. And anyway, these kids were walking by, going down the rink. I knew a couple of them. They were from my school and shit. And they walked by me, and they were down there waiting to get in a line. And while they were all waiting down there, another kid came up and just shot one of the kids I know right in his head, blew his brains right out.
Wow.
So
and you saw that right in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't I heard the gunshot, turned and see people running. Like I didn't actually see like the bullet go in, the brains come off. I just, you know what I mean? I wasn't paying attention. I was
you had those fast legs, dude.
Yeah, and I was gone.
Right, yeah.
Someone said because I remember when it first happened, we all kind of looked at each other and we're like, "Oh shit, what just happened?"
And then that's all Frankie Fast Legs.
Yeah. It was always the older boys. So but the crazy part about that was the first night I ever really, for whatever reason, man, it was the first time I ever really smoked weed and drank with the older boys. Mm-hmm. So I'm running through this breezeway, running back to my dad's house, and my dad's apartment, or it was an apartment right by the bar, was sometimes the electric was shut off. Sometimes, always the phone was always shut off. There wasn't always food to eat. And there was the crack epidemic, and my stepmom was participating in some illegal activities. I won't put her name or street out. I won't put her all business out there, but she was not being a very good wife.
Upstanding citizen, or wife. Yeah.
Or just being a good wife, period, if you know what I mean. When people came to crack happen. So all that stuff is going on in my life at the time, to where if you ever asked me where I grew up at that time, I would never tell you I was from Southwest Philly, because I was embarrassed. So I'm running back to my dad's house. The first time, that first drink and buzz and the weed is kicking in for the first time. And man, I remembered how warm my ears felt. I remember how great I felt. Mm-hmm. And I'm running my dad's place, and I'm thinking about all this shit that's going on in my life. And I remember, for the first time in my life, I was like, you know what? That's what's up. I live here. That's what's up. Like, I'll drugs instantly lowered my standards of living.
Right.
Like I would have never I lived there. I would never want to live in them circumstances. But now I'm like, you know what? That's what's up. Like it instantly lowered my standards of living. So anyway, that summer I get to go up to my cousin's house. Well, I'm up at my cousin's house where there's all these farm boys, and my cousin's part of this neo-Nazi thing. He's part of this new group called it was new to me. I'd heard of them, but now I'm seeing them firsthand. Was these skinheads?
Right.
So I go hang out with my cousin,
and that was a thing. That was a big thing in the late '80s, like the skinhead movement, the whole Doc Martin thing, and the whole braces and everything like that. It was like, oh, they're their own gang. I mean, obviously, for horrible reasons, but that was a thing growing up here in Dallas as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got arrested with Dallas neo-Nazis. We'll get into that story later. Yeah. I got arrested with Dallas neo-Nazis. So these guys were mostly all farm boys. This lived around that area that would come over to my cousin's house, and they were shaved bald, and they had swastika tattoos. The Geraldo incident, if you guys remember when Geraldo, the fight was on his show, that just happened. So that was big. That was really big. Right. These guys watched every night on VCA.
Yeah, it kind of gave them like some street cred.
Yeah. So, yeah, man. So like, I'm hanging out with these guys, and they would always say stuff like, now they would get all drunk, and now there's no drugs allowed in the neo-Nazis. The guys, no drugs, just drinking. Mm-hmm. And I'm already an alcoholic. I don't know it, but I mean, I've been drinking more than most of these guys have. Drinking again was nothing to me, and now like I'm drinking to get drunk. Mm-hmm. And I would hang out with guys, and they'd all be throwing back beers, and I'd be throwing beers back with them, and they were all older boys to me. I always hung out with the older guys for whatever reason, just my thing. I was the youngest usually of every crew, and hanging out with these guys, and they would start talking about like multiracial society don't work. Man, I'm going on 14 years old. I have no idea what they're talking about.
Right.
But when they talk about blacks and whites not getting along, or whites and Puerto Ricans not getting along, I'm like, dude, you don't know. And they didn't know. Like they only heard stuff because they live with Amish people.
Right.
So when these guys would start to talk to me about this stuff, I would be like, yeah. My cousin would start saying like, no, he would tell these big bad neo-Nazis. He'd be like, yo, you still don't understand where my cousin lives, man. It's like, he's talking about my dad's neighborhood. He's like, it's really bad. And he'd be like, tell him, Frank, tell him what it's like. And I would tell them what it's like. And these guys were like fascinated.
Uh-huh.
And me, that was someone finally asking, how's your life, dude?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were just asking me about what's it like being around black people.
Right.
But to me, they were, what's my life like?
Right.
And my parents asked me these questions. They had no time for me. And that's just the truth. It's not, they didn't have time for me. And I was a mistake. I knew I was a mistake. Both my parents moved on with new lives and new relationships. And I was just this drug-fueled, alcohol-fueled kid that came along.
Right.
Now people are like, and they don't know they're doing this to me. They're not that intelligent enough. And I'm not knocking
or coherent enough to be there to actually realize, oh, we might be fucking this kid up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't. They never asked me about life, period. I can come home with a black eye. My said, how's life? They just didn't.
Right.
Streets of Philly. Got a black eye, you got a black eye. It's just the way it is. So anyway, man, just hanging out.
Hit by a car.
You get hit by a car.
Yeah,
man.
right.
What was it, your cousin?
Hey, that was your second cousin.
If I would have got hit by a car, I would have been in trouble. It would have been my fault. Like that's how my
dude, Frankie Fastlegs didn't get out of the way of the car by his second cousin, dude. He's a fuck up, man.
What are you trying to get cousin Eric in trouble? What's wrong with you?
Right. There you go.
You know he ain't got a license. Why you get hit by his car?
Yeah, that's hilarious.
So anyway, man, these guys, I just enjoyed hanging out with them. And then I would go to these nightclubs with them where they would meet up with other neo-Nazis who I didn't know because they didn't come around my cousin's house. But they all kind of knew each other from their own little network. And my cousin, I didn't have a shaved head at the time. I still had like a little mullet type of like teardrop haircut, the skater haircut at the time and stuff. And these guys would... my cousin would say to them, like, yo, if we go into this nightclub and everyone starts fighting, because the neo-Nazis would just beat up everybody inside the nightclub. You know what I mean? It was just kind of the thing that they did at the time.
Right.
At the time, there was a big haircut, and that was the mullet, and these guys would go beat up people with mullets, and that's kind of a good cause. You know what I mean? So,
right.
I mean, so... but man, at the end of the night, with all the neo-Nazis be getting kicked out of the nightclub, and I'd be getting kicked out with them because I was definitely one with them. If I wasn't on the bigger guy's shoulders fighting, I mean, we used to do all that type of stuff. And I would see at the end of the night that how everyone in that club, feared them. Like they wouldn't come out of the nightclub at the end of the night. If we were still on the parking lot, nobody would come out.
Oh yeah, that was a big thing. Like in Dallas, like at Deep Ellum, they'd be like, oh man, skinheads are down there. Oh, don't go down there. Oh, don't go down there. And it was this whole reverence that they got for being such a shitty group.
Yeah. And what I would see, just so you get from the point of view that I would see is, I would see the fear in people's eyes of these guys.
Right.
And I would love it. Oh, yeah. Like I got to be real honest. I might have been a 14-year-old little athletic little kid or, young teenager. But really, man, I was just a scared little boy.
Yeah.
I feared everything. I feared my school.
Right.
I feared my step parents. I feared if I was going to have enough freaking food to eat some days. And now people are fearing me.
Right.
I liked it. That night, one of the nights, some guys asked me if I shaved my head. I was all drunk, drinking with the guys, getting a little too drunk. And I said, not that it took me to be drunk. I would have did it anyway. But they're like, you want to shave your head type of stuff? And I said, let's do it. And every guy that was there at this party that one night, they took the clippers. One guy do one row of my hair. The next guy grabbed the clippers, do next row of my hair. And I was in, man. Right. And I got into that. Again, no drugs. I don't want to dwell too much on that. That was all ego-based, fear-based living. I got very active in that movement to where I eventually, was trying to kill myself all the time during this stuff. I was living the most craziest lifestyle, living with people that this wasn't like the Nazi lowriders. I was like kind of hanging with the people that are like planning on robbing banks and planning on becoming cops. I mean, that type of stuff.
Right.
And I eventually went to prison for kidnapping at the age of 17. I was kidnapping people and holding them for ransom. And I kidnapped an Antifa, not a member, but a person who was part of the Antifa side of the skinheads. Just so you know, all skinheads are not racist. There's actually groups of skinheads that are fully left wing, and they're what we call Antifa today. So I kidnapped one of their guys and held him for ransom. Nobody would pay the ransom, so we had to let the guy go.
Right.
And I had my own cable access show for the neo-Nazis at the time. I was in Springfield, Illinois, and I wound up catching a case for aggravated kidnapping.
Oh, wow.
Went to prison from 17 to 19 in the adult maximum security prison. I was in there with the same people like John Wayne Gacy was in there when I was there. The guy that killed 34, 17, 18 boys. He dressed like a clown. He's the reason why they make the movies with the guy dressed as a clown is because of this dude.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm 17 years old. Now, just want to tell people this because I don't try to hide anything. When I went to prison, it wasn't hard for me because of who I was. I had a big swastika tattooed on my neck, tattooed on my head. I had a cable access show for the neo-Nazis.
Right. Yeah, and there's the whole Aryan Brotherhood that's going on inside prison for sure. Yeah.
And all the bikers run with the Aryans, all the white Northsiders and they all run with the Aryans. Everyone stays school. So I got in there. I was like a little celebrity, and it sounds egotistical, but it's just the truth. But in there, right, we're allowed to drink. You're allowed to do drugs. So I started dabbling a little bit in drugs in there, but I wasn't big into it. I was still drinking a lot whenever I could. And in our gang, in our clique, in our whatever you want to call us, you weren't allowed to drink and drive, which meant you can't be drunk and walking out on the tiers. Dude, four times I got violated by my gang for drinking and driving, because I just couldn't stop.
Right.
And I was too drunk, or one time I called one of our main guys. I was just joking, but I was all drunk, being funny. I was like, "Fuck you, you bitch!" And you can't do that until a higher up. But I was just drunk, and I got violated. And violated for me was like I just got taxed, and I had got some restrictions. Like they didn't do anything to me; they wouldn't hurt me or anything.
Right.
I was, again, so. With that, guys, I'm getting out of prison, and this is where, if you guys look up my name or whatever, you'll see like we're American History X. People try to loosely tie us together. It is what it is. I was leaving in prison with like a little bit of a changed heart, but I wasn't getting out of the neo-Nazis. I just wasn't. That was my life. That was my goal. That was who I always thought I was going to. I had a big swastika on my neck. It's kind of hard to be like, So I get out of prison. I'm still a neo-Nazi, even though I'm cool with the black kids because I played basketball with a bunch of them, played football with a bunch of them, played spade.
What do the kids think of, like, or when you're rolling around with the swastika? Does anybody say like, "Hey, dude, that's not a good symbol"?
In prison?
No. Like, I mean, when you're outside or when you're hanging with, black people.
Well, at the time in prison, that was completely. Every white guy is swastika on them. They didn't give a crap.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it was commonplace.
And the black kids all knew from a lot of them that came up in the county jail system with me that I started seeing upstate again, who were kind of cool with me in the county jail. They all knew I was like this city kid. Like all my bikers from Southern and Central Illinois are my Aryans. Dude, I don't know about a Harley Davidson, but I know about taking an L train every day.
Right.
So like I got with black kids on the urban life that I grew up in. So I mean, there was a couple of them guys that just made me laugh. I mean, so like we all kind of got along, and they knew that was my set. That's all they thought of. Like to them, it's not like this. They didn't know that I was like fully part of the militia part of it. They just thought I was like the rest of the Aryan bikers that got into prison, see they're outnumbered by black people, and like, yo, I got to join a gang. You know what I mean? So that's whatever. You know,
sure,
it is what it is. So when I was getting released from prison, I'm, go right back to drinking very heavily. I mean, the first thing when I got out of jail, out of prison, my buddy picked me up. We went and I got 240 ounces. Like I couldn't wait. Even though I was a neo-Nazi, I drank 40 ounces because I was an urban kid. But it was my first thing I wanted to do. I couldn't wait to drink. I'm causing havoc. I had a daughter who don't get to see, because I was a convict and all this other stuff. So anyway, I get released from there, and things ain't working out too good in Illinois for me because I caused all this trouble there, the kidnapping there. So I moved back to where all my neo-Nazi friends accept me right back in. Of course they did. And there again, it's all drinking. And but I'll tell you, there was just little things, man, that would bother me. Like they would, I'd be at a meeting or a rally or whatever, and I just hear them saying about all black people are this way. And I was so tired of like making exceptions for my hate. I was always like, well, I hate all of them except for this guy deciding this guy.
Yeah, right. Except for the ones that make me laugh and that I really like and that are actually my real friends.
Yeah, actually, the ones that I know I like. The ones I don't know I don't like.
Oh, there you go.
So anyway, guys, I'm trying to get a job. I'm a full-blown alcoholic at the time, but I wound up needing some work. And a buddy of mine said he can get me a job working at an antique show in the Cherry Hill, New Jersey Mall for the weekend. Take the job. As soon as I said I'll take the job, my buddy goes, yo, the guy that's hiring is like a Jew. Like he's like a Jewish dude.
Right.
And I was like, I don't care. Is he going to pay, whatever. I need the work. And I said, but did you tell him about me? Now, again, I'm just getting out of prison. I'm still full swastika up and all that stuff. And I was telling him about me. And he goes, oh, yeah, I told him all about you. And he said he doesn't give a rat's ass what you believe. Just don't break his furniture.
Right.
Showed up, worked for this man. After the day of work, I did this like a typical alcoholic, not being anti-Semitic here, but what I was doing was I had already planned the argument out because I had made $600 in tips. So typical alcoholic style, I had already plotted a whole argument out with this guy in my head that he was not going to pay me the $300 that he owed me because I made $600 in tips. So I remember the weekend comes. And he's like, I owe you money. And I'm thinking, he ain't going to pay me all my money, man.
Right.
He's going to and going to Jew me.
Right.
So he comes up, he goes, how much? He goes, I owe you money, right? And I got a pocket full of money already. And I'm like, yeah, you do owe me money. Now, again, I'm waiting for him to say, well, I ain't going to pay you, blah, blah, blah. And I got the whole argument plotted out. Boy, I'm waiting for him to say this so I could say that. It's And he said, pulls out a wad of money. He goes, well, here's what I owe you, $300. He goes, here's 1, 2, here's 300. Here's an extra $100. You're a really good worker.
Right. And you're like,
all I thought about was, you son of a bitch. You ruined my argument.
Right. So hey, real quick, Frank. I don't want to interrupt, but I do have to get to our sponsor real quick. But we'll get back. So there is Max the Axe. He is a personal injury attorney. He practices in Texas and in California. If you go to thispinklawyer.com, it will route you to his website, which is Lone Star Injury Attorneys. Shoot him an email, and he will get back to you on any personal injury matters. And he will get you the maximum result. And he's a good dude, and he sponsors the show. And then now our favorite part of the show, aka the train wreck, is when Chad reads the commercial written by AI for Stepping Stones Sober Living. Real quick, their number is 920-454-0569. Once again, 920-454-0569. Ask for Joe. It's Stepping Stone Sober Living. And Joe, we apologize in advance for what Chad is about to do.
Yeah, I think since we have somebody with such an awesome accent on the show, I think I am going to do like your just most stereotypical redneck that I can do.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, are you or someone you know struggling with addiction and looking for a safe and supportive environment to begin the road to recovery? Stepping Stone Sober Living is the place to go.
We know firsthand the journey to sobriety can seem impossible, but you never have to do it alone. Now, Morgan Freeman.
Our community provides the support and encouragement you need to stay on track and achieve your recovery goals.
We offer clean, comfortable accommodations that will help you feel right at home.
I just drooled on my shirt. That was bad.
You're committed, dude. It's
Yeah, I was
good.
committed to that, man. All right. They're really close to downtown McKinney in several vibrant recovery groups, so you can easily access the support and resources you need to succeed. And remember,
Recovery's a journey, not a destination. If you're serious about your recovery, then we want to damn help.
I love it.
There we
All
go.
right, so that is
Yeah.
Stepping Stone Sober Living, 920-454-0569. Once again, that is 920-454-0569. And then we also have a new track out, right, Chad?
Yeah.
Not everybody knows that we also produce dance music and DJ. So, hey, it's our show. All right, well, cool. That is our new track. That's called Something Beautiful. It is on the Spotify, all other streaming platforms, also available on Beatport. What were you over there laughing at, Chad?
because you're sitting there, you had that face, dude. You're like,
I think I'm hungry. I think I'm gonna eat me a little apple.
So I
come
take-
back from it, and you were chewing
So
on an apple, dude.
I take a bite of apple during the break, and Chad's like,
I'm a little hungry.
We have health
Yeah,
and wellness
anyway.
going on here.
all right. So anyway, dude, I want to get back to Frank's story because I mean it's
gnarly, dude.
definitely engaging. All right, so we're back. You're out of prison, and then you just pick us up where you left off.
Yeah. So so now I meet this Jewish man who again, that's the backup. I was a neo-Nazi, but so now like God puts a Jewish man in my life to like. Because at this end of my neo-Nazi days, like I come to this conclusion that like blacks and Latinos and whites, like we're all equal because I've seen us all in prison together. I had this whole thing in my head, like I'm like, you know what, we're kind of all equal. I was like, but I'm still gonna hate the Jews because the Jews keep me
Right.
me hating me part of the movement.
You got
right?
at
So now,
least something to hate.
got it, man.
Yeah.
Because it isn't all my fault that my life's shitty. It's not my fault.
Right.
Everybody's fault. So now I have this Jewish man come in my life, and it's just one of the most amazing people in my life.
Mhm.
And he started showing boutique business, and me and him used to talk all the time in the truck to go pick up furniture. And he had other people in his warehouses, but he picked me a lot to go with him on these rides to go pick up furniture. And we would just rap about life. And the time was the O.J. Simpson trial, so we used to talk about like DNA and all this really interesting stuff. And but I had that little tick in my head that a lot of us have, especially when you're a drug addict, like where I secretly just feel I'm really stupid and dumb. And a lot of people have that, but for us alcohol, very sensitive, and I would, if I break something, I would be like, oh, I'm so stupid, or I would say something like, well, I'm stupid.
Well,
and one day
but I think you're a child. You're a product of your childhood because you're used to getting your ass whipped or handed to you on a daily basis, dude.
and being told I'm nothing but a ditch digger. I was told that.
Yeah.
nothing but a ditch digger.
Right.
So, and one day I broke something and said that I was stupid to Keith, and Keith came over and said, stop saying you're stupid, you idiot. And
right.
we're in the truck, right? And we're driving, and he just unloads on me one day. We're in this truck driving through New Jersey, and he's just like, stop saying you're stupid. You know, he's just like, and he's breaking down these times when I said some intelligent things. He's like, man, you figured that out. He was a very animated guy. He's like, can you figure that out? And these key words to me that stuck with me that day. For whatever reason, he looked at me and said, Frank, smart people can fake being dumb, but dumb people can't fake being smart. Right. You're just smart. And I was like, you know, so anyway, he gets me out of the truck, and that was my final day as neo-Nazi. That was the day I walked home he dropped me off. I walked back to my mom's crib, and I was just like, this is wrong. Like, I just knew it in my heart. Like, it overwhelmed me that day that I was like, knew that I felt stupid, not because Keith said that stuff, but I felt stupid because I literally was constantly making exceptions for my hate now. Like I was telling you earlier, I would say, I hate all them people except for this guy, this guy, and this guy. And now here, I hate all Jewish people except for Keith, because Keith's cool, because I know him. And there was a couple.
It's like you're running out of people to hate, dude.
And God wasn't giving me the option anymore. He was like, you're either going to, there was a moment where I thought, like, you're either going to just buy in and just keep believing in something that's evil, kind of. Like, I just knew it was kind of wrong and evil to hate people. You know, there's a whole big thing, but it happened to me. And that was the day I was like, all right, I'm done with this. But now I'm still fully drunk. I mean, I'm drinking every day of my life. And again, it's just part of the culture. And then, and now that I'm out of that movement, I get to do drugs, and I'm back in my mom's neighborhood. My mom is like the Oxycontin queen of South Philly by this time. Right. The Oxys were starting to come out, and my mom was like, seriously, the Oxycontin queen of our neighborhood. Nice. So I went to Oxys because I was like, I seen, but I was like, I started doing a lot of Vicodin and Percocet. I'm getting up to like where I'm eating like 15 or 20 of them at a time, breaking them, drinking hot tea with them, you know, doing all the junky shit. And that started getting too expensive. And so then I was like, might as well go with these Oxy things. I mean, I know that one Oxy equals so many amounts of Percocet. You know, I had known the breakdown. My mom's a street pharmaceutical. All my friends and family, or most of my, are street pharmaceutical. I know the breakdown. I was like, well, I might start doing these Oxys. So I'm starting to eat Oxy. And then I started running out of money real quick on that. And even though I was getting the family discount, I'm running out of money. And then the closest thing and next thing to that, what everyone goes to is the heroin. And now I live in South Philly, but it's only one train ride away to get to North Philly, which I don't know if you guys ever seen Kensington, K&A, Streets of Kensington. It's like the most craziest open air heroin market in America. And I used to take the train up there, and I would, go get a couple bags of sniff. And then I'm starting to sniff too many bags. And then what's the next is let me start shooting up.
Yes, sir.
So next thing you know, like, I'm the guy. So I don't know if you guys had these moments when you're drinking and drugging, but I know I would drive I would get on the train. I'm already on my way to Kensington and Allegheny to go get off to go cop and use. And but I would sit on the train and I would feel bad. And I would go, all right, God, if you don't want me to use, I'm going to flip this coin. And if it lands on heads, I'm not going to use. And I'm already on the train. I've already spent the money that I had to get on the train. So flip, land on heads, and I look up at God and go, all right, God, best out of three.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because you had already committed by the time you got on the train, dude. You were already there.
Yeah. And by the time I'm at best of seven, because that's where I get to.
best of seven.
I'm at top, right? So I get off, go use, and man, when I first started to shoot up, it was like this. I was sitting on this abandoned train trestle up in Kensington, and I had this homeless guy, because I didn't know how to hit the vein yet. I just didn't know how to do any of that. So I had this homeless guy who would hit me. And the one time he's about to hit me, I'm on this train trestle, and I look over, and there's another guy with like this little light and a mirror, and he's trying to find that vein right underneath his package. And I'm looking at the guy as he's doing that. And what do I think? At least I'm not that bad.
Right. Yeah.
You know? Now, my drinking career, and maybe you guys, I go out drinking 20 times, and 18 to 19 of them were horrendous, man. Homicide cases, stealing money off my own dad's bar, sleeping with my friends' girls, all the bad stuff that comes, horrendous, and weekends and nights of spending money I shouldn't have been spending, all that stuff. But one of the times I sat in the bar, I got the wink from the girl I liked. The Flyers won the hockey game, and it was like a beer commercial.
Right.
And I only remember the beer commercial.
Right.
Yep.
So self-absorbed. And, you know, there's some other nights where I sat at the bar and I looked down at the crackheads. To this day, I've never smoked crack. It's just whatever reason. I've done everything else.
Right.
I've broken crack, got it up with a syringe, but I never smoked it.
Hey, dude, I'm right there with you.
Right?
I'm right there with you.
I would sit there and look at them crackheads at the end of the bar all night as I'm drinking and getting ready to go cop and use my stuff. And I'd be like, at least I ain't them scumbags.
Yeah, at least I'm not a fucking crackhead.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know what's funny? 2:00 in the morning, who am I in the car with?
I'm fucking crackheads. And doing fucking heroin.
So judging them until they finally had intervention on me. The crackheads in the crack house told me I was too effed up to live with them.
Oh, wow. Now that's big, dude.
That's even in my autobiography.
Right.
Hey,
So,
what's the name of your autobiography?
It's called The Autobiography of Recovering Skinhead.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And that's available on all platforms?
Yeah, all platforms. Yeah, it's
Is
been
there
out
an
since
audio book?
It's on. It hasn't been an audio book yet.
Okay, because I want to hear you read it, dude. I love your voice, by the way.
Don't hear me read.
No, I want to hear it. I like it. I like your voice.
So man, I'm getting into heroin, and I wound up somehow marrying this woman, a beautiful woman who was a professional. I don't know. Somehow it's like they say, I just took people hostage, man. I was like, gotcha, bitch. And I married this woman, and we moved to Iowa. And so by this time, guys, even though I'm drinking and drugging and doing all this, somehow when I still lived in Philly, I got a job working for the Philadelphia Flyers, who was like my hometown team, teaching because I had started to change from the neo-Nazi stuff and started to help out after the Oklahoma City bombing. Became a kind of an activist against it, but also got a job teaching black kids how to play hockey. Again, I was just an athlete, and the Philadelphia Flyers backed this program called Harmony Through Hockey that I did, and it was doing very well. But I married this woman. We moved to Iowa. So on the surface, things look great, but when you move to Iowa, there was not a lot of heroin at all. And if it did, it was so tread on that by the time I got there, it was not really heroin anymore. It was baby, it was all the stuff they put in there. But what they did do there was meth. And when in Rome.
Yeah. When in Iowa, do meth.
Yeah. That's what the farmers do.
Right.
So anyway. I get a real bad meth addiction. Yo, guys, I'm in and out of rehab now, like constantly, just back and forth, in and out of rehabs. I have been in and out of rehabs, even in Philly all the time. And man, I got sober in 2007 for about 3 years, and in that 3 years is when I wrote my autobiography. It was like one of these things where God sobered me up so I could write a true, honest autobiography. And my autobiography I wrote right when I wrote a good chunk of it while I was doing my 4-step, which was pretty amazing experience. So if you ever read my autobiography, it's basically like my 4-step in a book form.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. But I mean, they tell you to get it out. And I mean, like some people will do a paragraph, but you did a book. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And what happened was when I wrote the book with a woman who was very strict, who at the time there was a guy named James Fry. Do you remember that Million Little Pieces? And there's a book anyway, this guy came out with a book called A Million Little Pieces where he totally talks crap about the 12-step programs. And he was this guy who got sober and he tried to make this whole new thing. And he got caught in a bunch of lies. And he was on Oprah's book club. And then Oprah found out he lied and she brought him on her show and just basically annihilated him on his show. And it was like, you lied to my viewers. And just a very, very famous story at the time. Well, at that time is when I'm starting to write my book. So my writer goes, you seen that James Fry guy? I said, yup. And she said, we ain't gonna have none of them moments. So what we did, not only did I do my 4-step, we traveled to all the places in my book and like met up with everyone that was part of the story. So we got their version of the story, and pretty intense. Anyway, couldn't stay sober, guys. I'll fast forward this a little bit. About 2014, man, my life just starts falling apart crazy. Like my oldest son dies in a car accident when he was 19. And he was in New Jersey. My mom dies of a fentanyl overdose. My best man at my wedding kills himself. His brother, now these were my cousins, he kills himself. My I had a TV show that I put out with AMC that never got picked up, but a buddy of mine was part of it. Later on, steals the concept and goes and makes the TV show for another network. A station that I started was taken away from me because I started using again, and a lot of crazy things were happening. I started helped start an organization called Life After Hate, where we did interventions on neo-Nazis. That gets pulled, like, just a lot of stuff was happening in my life. And it was like every day, it's like the other shoe was always going to drop. And I keep relapsing. Eventually get a divorce from my wife, which now is like 2019. I had the house, the guys had the farmhouse, the craftsman style farmhouse, the picket fence, the dog, the hockey career. I was coaching hockey on a very high level, speaking all around the world, and everything it collapsed.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to use again. So in the middle of this divorce, I'll tell you the story because this is I didn't get myself sober this time. I was in the middle of the divorce. So I'm living at a friend's house, but I'm also dating this girl who, by this time I found out I'm Jewish. Like, I didn't find out DNA wise. I just found out about my last name.
Didn't you have some guy that was calling you out that was always like, oh yeah, you're part of the tribe, and you just didn't even know it?
Yeah. I was always like, whatever. I thought he was just busting my chops.
Right.
There was a guy at an AA meeting in 2012 in Los Angeles who he came up to me when I was in LA making that TV show where I was doing interventions on neo-Nazis in 2000. It was 2011. There was this old Jewish guy, he ain't older, but he's older Jewish guy, came up to me one day at a meeting, and his first words out of his mouth was, a fellow Heb. But we were at a meeting spot. Right. He's like, a fellow Heb. And I'm like, I'm not Jewish. I'm like, I'm actually a former neo-Nazi here making a TV show about doing, and he was just like, well, you look Jewish to me. And I'd heard that in my life. So anyway, but me and that guy, Richard, throughout the years from 2012 to 2019, or 2011 to 2019, I just randomly would call this guy in LA. I don't live in LA. I lived in Iowa. But I would just call him because we had a good connection. And he'd always be like, wow, what bullshit are you up to today? And I hadn't talked to her. And he'd always say stuff like, I can help you. Like, you're crazy. Like, you're literally crazy. But I can help people like you. And so that had happened. Well, I hadn't talked to him in a long time at this time, though. So I'm leaving. I'm in the middle of divorce. I'm dating this Jewish girl. I find like the one Jewish girl in all of Des Moines, Iowa. So there's not a lot.
Right.
I'm dating her, but I'm living at this buddy of mine's house he's an active drug addict, alcoholic, who's let me stay at his crib. And I can't see my kids. I had a no contact put on me, just a no contact, no violence. Not that I'm justifying any of this, but me and my ex-wife, like, tons of infidelity was coming out at the end. It was a really bad divorcing situation. So anytime we were together, the bickering was so horrible that there was a no contact between us. Well, what I did, because I don't ever play by the rules, because I'm above the rules.
Of course.
The no contact. She was somewhere, I was not allowed to be there. Well, I knew that my son was playing in a hockey tournament. My youngest son was playing in a hockey tournament in Omaha, and from my coaching days, I also was a very sought after referee. I'm a really, really good hockey referee. I was like, I called this hockey tournament. I was like, hey, I know you're looking for referees, and they know nothing about the no contact, and they were just glad that I would referee because I was teams and coaches respected me as a ref. I was very fair and good ref. So they were like, sure, come coach our tournament. Right. I'm just, so I could see my kid.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I was doing the ghetto Mrs. Doubtfire, really. I was just trying to be around my kid.
Ghetto Mrs. Doubtfire. That's funny.
Anyway, I got arrested for breaking the no contact order. Again, that's one of the last things for my hockey career. Everyone in hockey wanted nothing to do with me anymore. I got arrested, breaking the whole thing. So I'm driving from that girl's house over to my buddy's house, and I'm just starting to lose it, man. Like, I'm just crying continuously. I can't stop using. I can't stop thinking about using. I can't stop thinking about the divorce. I can't stop thinking about my wife cheating on me. I can't, whatever, right? It's all going through my head. Go over to this church. Can't stop thinking about myself, if you notice that. It's all about me.
Right.
Now, I'm not about my kids. I'm not thinking about anybody else. I mean, being honest. So I pull over to the side of the road at this church, and I'm screaming up to God. I was like, please, God, fucking kill me. Like, I can't kill myself. I've come to that conclusion in my life. I see too many people kill themselves, and I see that you don't take the pain with you. or the pain doesn't go away. You just transfer it over to your kids. And I had known that, right? Mm-hmm. But I was like, if I just die normally, like a fucking car accident or a telephone pole falls on me or a tornado comes through Iowa.
If I can get a cousin to hit me with their car, dude.
Right. Anything. Just take me out and don't let it look like it was a suicide. But I can't deal with this pain. And so I'm screaming to God, please fucking kill me. God, please kill me. And as I'm screaming and crying up at God in this car, the Jewish girl calls me. And sorry just to call her a Jewish girl, but just give me an example. The girl I'm dating.
Right.
And I pick up the phone and she's screaming, crying on the phone. And so I'm like, what? Like this is my moment. You know, I'm just screaming. I'm like, what do you want? And she said, get back to my house. My sister just killed herself.
Oh, wow.
And for wherever you guys, this is my story. You do whatever you want with your story, my story. The whole world stopped for 1 second, guys. And this voice came to me. It was a blinding light moment almost, except for it wasn't a blinding light. It was just a voice came to me. And it said, get to California. I have work for you. And that get to California might call that dude Richard, the one that called me a Hebe 12 years ago.
Right.
Called that guy. And I said, yo, you're going to sponsor me or I'm going to kill you. So it was nothing.
Right.
They get to California, man. And I'd already made plans to go to Turkey. The Turkish government had called me over there about some shit that I was doing, you know, against the right, extreme right wing. And there was some stuff going on. Turkey government had called me over, and I'd already made plans that I was just going to run from there. Like I was going to just run from,
and just
where
disappear over in Europe somewhere.
Yep, to Asia,
right?
Do something. When I couldn't take the pain anymore. But the whole time I was there, I was like, am I going to do this? And I was like, no. That dude Richard said, get back to California. I'll sponsor you. And I knew that that voice kept saying, go to California. I got work for you. Mm-hmm. Guys, I flew to California in 2019. And I've been sober ever since. That man is still my sponsor. I talked to him right before I came on this thing. I talked to that man every morning. I did a thorough fourth and fifth step with him. The most big, and I'll tell you guys, it was during the pandemic. So it's December 16th, 2019 is when I get sober. Pandemic happens like 4 or 5 months later. I'm living in LA in this little crappy apartment right by downtown LA, one of the biggest drug areas, actually called MacArthur Park. I'm living there, and this man's my sponsor, and he was first couple months I was doing my 4-step again with this man, and he would call me and be like, "Are you done that 4-step yet?" And now it's during the pandemic, guys. I can't leave my apartment, and I'd be like, "No, I'm busy. I'm busy." You know, we could always find something. It's during the pandemic, but I'm too get my 4-step done. And he just said, "Man, just do half hour every day." And I was like, "Man,
dude, I'm binge watching Golden Girls on Netflix, man."
Dude, I out. Come on.
All right.
So anyway, I said, all right, fine. I'm not going to do a half hour. Don't tell me what to do. So I'm going to do 20 minutes a day. But man, in that 20 minutes every day, I wound up doing a very thorough 4th step. And I finally, after a month or so, he said, let's come up to my house and you're going to read it. And now, again, it's the middle of the pandemic. It was just the height of the pandemic. So I had to go up to his house and make sure I wasn't sick and all that, and went into his house and into his little study area. And guys, for anyone that's listening that has to get this done, man, it's just be thorough. And I had put in the back, like you hear a lot of people do, man. I did all these, the little flim flam 4 steps. My grandma loved the other kids more than me, which is okay. I'm not anyone that has those feelings. So I had them feelings too. Like, my parents love my other kids more than me. Da, 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 da. But there was the ones in the back, man. The ones that that if I told anyone else, you would have to go in front of a deposition about it. And I had some of that things and some cases and some stuff like that. And I saved that stuff for the back. But during the middle of this, I probably got halfway through my 4-step reading this thing out of this big basic copy book that I had, as a legal notebook. And I just said, you know what, heck, I'm going to try. And I went right to the back of the book. And after I did one of the little amends, I said, let me just try this. And I went right to the back. And I said, okay, Richard, here you go. And I told him something that was just brutal. And with no judgment, because that's the one thing about this man, is there was no judgment. And whoever it is, man, there was the day that was a little cloudy that day. And when I told him that, for whatever reason, it just happened to be like a cloud just happened to move just a little bit, and it got just a little bit brighter. You see the sun just coming a little bit brighter. It just happened, man. And there was this moment I looked over at him and was like, all right, I'm telling him everything.
Right.
And I told him everything. And I also in that time realized I'm going to be with this man for life until one of us is gone.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, I'm never going to argue with him.
Right.
Even if he and tells me something that I already know, which happens sometimes, where he'll be like, you should try doing, he'll give me suggestions instead of going, I know, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
I always go, okay,
right.
you got it.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, it sounds like you've learned to respect his opinion, but then also, a big part of it is being honest with yourself and being honest enough to get to deal with that stuff that's deep in there that you really don't want to tell anybody, and do a true fourth step.
Yep.
Yeah, it's those take them to
be
the
brutal.
graves, are the ones that'll set you free.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just and here's a man who, with no judgment at all, and he sponsors some big names. Just he's up in the valley in LA, so he sponsors some big names. People you'd heard of. People, if you put on TV for today, you probably see one or two of the people he sponsors. Put it that way.
Right.
And we all will tell you, man, this little old man. He's not a little old man. He's an older man. He's little.
Uh-huh.
Little old Jewish guy from Canada. Who's a film. He works in the film industry.
Uh-huh.
He wrestles our egos out of us with love.
Right.
He just wrestles the egos out of us with love. And I, for whatever reason, man, still had such a crazy ego that all the time.
Well, I think a lot of us do, like as far as the ego. Chad talked about his ego the other week.
A lot of it develops because it's like we feel like shit inside, and it's a survival mechanism to make us appear one way that we think we should appear, and then it becomes overwhelming, and then that takes over our entire lives in areas, and we can't see it. We can't see it at all.
Someone starts to, someone says something that hurts my ego, takes that away a little bit. I get defensive.
Mm-hmm.
I slip in pity. That's one of the things I have to work on a lot. The one thing I do with my sponsor, and I don't know if you do it with yours, it doesn't matter. But have a conversation with my sponsor, a lot of time has to be in a 10-step form, so a mini 4-step. Where I have to get really brutally honest with when people at work piss me off, if my girl pisses me off. Like, I don't get to take it out on the world anymore. I don't get to tell other people how they get to treat me. I don't. Like, I lost that ability because when I do that, I'm all wrapped in self. So I get to do it with my sponsor, and then I just get to accept them as a loving child of God too, who have their own issues, right? Everyone has an ism. Everyone has the ISM, the I self-medicate. It could be their low self-esteem or their whatever, or their own little drugs and alcohol, but everyone has it. And so for me not to be able to judge people, it's been a gift, because once I start doing that, man, I start thinking about myself. And when I future trip, man, you're all my enemy. Everyone's my enemy when I future trip. Because you're not going to say the things I want you to say. You're not going to do the things I want you to do. You're not going to. And the other thing is, man, I used to always constantly put on people's like, if you loved me, you would have said this when that person said that. If you loved me, you would have known that you should have bought me this type of candy and not that type, whatever it might have been.
Right.
And it don't get to do that today.
Well, hey, I also wanted to bring up the fact that you also, you're an activist for the or against the neo-Nazi movement, but you also have a podcast that you do yourself, correct?
Yeah, I'm a very, so one of the things when I said God had work for me was, so just, for people that are listening, this is not all police, but in my movement, there have been men and women who were very active in our movement who kept their noses clean because as they got older, they were going to become cops. Mm-hmm. And we even had a neo-Nazi band, a music band out called the Arresting Officers. Mm. So when I started to really get clean and sober and started to live to do things for other people, one thing I also want to say is that this program and the way that my sponsor did this to me now, it's the first time is that my brain finally had to switch from survival mode to servant mode. Mm-hmm. And just to do things for others. And, let's be real. If someone has the neo-Nazi beliefs, mm-hmm. think about they pull black people over on a dark road in Texas somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And they get to pull them out of their cars, mm-hmm. and they get to humiliate them, treat them like shit, just to try to search their cars. Like so one of the things I got to testify in front of the United States Congress about was like, they're really in there. Like, mm-hmm. we're really, really in there. And from that, man, all types of things started happening. Thank God I had this program.
Right.
Because I started getting death threats from law enforcement and from neo-Nazi groups after I testified. And I had my sponsor to lean on. I had God to lean on. And also in that time, just so you guys know, in the last 4 years since right when I started to get this recovery, I fully converted over to Judaism.
Right.
And just, I don't preach my religion because it's not part of the deal for us. But I'm telling you, my style of Judaism and recovery just happened. If you picture a zipper on a jacket, like all the teeth just started to come together on what my job is. And that is to stop thinking about myself all the time and to think about others. And my activism is very strong. I mean, my voice is able to be heard because of the story and the life that I live, that people will listen to me.
Yeah.
And that, on top of that, I just echo a lot of what other Black activists, just to put this out there, guys. Like, people want to quote Martin Luther King, and they want to quote Malcolm X, and you want to quote James Baldwin. They want to quote all these great Black activists, but everyone talked about police brutality. So, like, we're just not listening still. Like, we're just not. And it's something that I think is going to heal this country is when we start to get some real.
Do you think that you've seen it, like, over the time, from when you were an active neo-Nazi to now? I mean, have you seen at least a little bit of an improvement? I mean, I think I have, but I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not always looking out for it, but I think, maybe it's more swept under the rug now, but I don't know.
But it's not. Just, I'm going to point out some numbers. Yeah. Is in this country, we have 34% of the world's women's prison population in a country that only has 3.8% of the population of the world.
Yeah,
it's mostly women of color and poor whites that is built incarceration system. So, I mean, that's kind of my job. And my job is, for a long time, I was a misogynistic craphead, to be honest. And so one of the jobs, again, because I'm not standing up for myself, is to stand up for others, is to stand up for this.
Hey, okay, so what's the name of your podcast? Let's give that a plug.
I don't have a cool name like you guys do. Like, you guys got a cool name.
Right.
Mine is just my name. It's the Frank Meeink Show. And you can find it on the podcast thing. So it's always about, like, we have...
Are you on YouTube as well?
Oh, yeah, I have a YouTube channel. None of my shows are on YouTube. I should start putting them on there, but I'm not, because we just started out. Our first big guest, we just recorded it, is with Daryl Davis, who is a Black jazz musician who's for years has been doing corresponds with Klansmen, and then when they get to know him, he goes, "Yo, I'm a Black dude," and you've been corresponding with the whole time, and we love each other, and we've been having these great correspondence, and now they still hate me.
That makes me think of the whole Chappelle Show thing, where he's the Black white supremacist. Yeah.
Biggs, what's his name?
Clayton Bigsby.
Yeah, Clayton Bigsby. That makes me crack up. But hey, man, I don't want to cut you off, man. I could listen to you talk all day, dude. But I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. I don't know, Dusty or Chad, if you had any questions or.
Yeah, I just had one, Frank, and I mean, it's such a compelling story. I appreciate you sharing it with us. Do you think, because of how you were treated as a child, and when you developed this self-loathing and hate for yourself, do you think that made it easier for you to hate others in the earlier years? And were Richard and the gentleman you worked for delivering furniture, was that the first time you really experienced love? And was that a big turning point for you to know that I'm capable of being loved? Did you experience that before?
I mean, I always say this, like, I might have. I just didn't. My mind wasn't open to it. There might have been a couple of aunts and uncles that tried to show me some love, but at certain points in my life, man, I'm sad to say I was unreachable. And I think that God had made it to where there was times that my defenses were down. Like, I got to give all credit to God on this, man. I really do. This isn't. If it was left up to my own devices, man, I'd be in a heroin den in Philly right now, shooting up Trank, the new drug. You know what I mean? I'd be doing all the new things. So, that's who. So it was, God allowed for me to, for whatever reason, have that little kink in the armor at times to be like, okay. All right, and I felt that love. You're right. It was because, again, it's the only thing that when I do interventions on neo-Nazis, man, it wasn't like, you're so wrong. It was like what's going on with you? Because one of the things that AA does for us is we, and this doesn't take away from the women's movement, but we are the original Me Too movement. When alcoholics come in the room and go, yo, I was drinking and driving my kids in the car. Yeah, me too, buddy. Come sit down with me. Here's my number. When everyone else in the world has been like, get away from me, you scumbag. We're always like, yo, me too.
Right.
Me too.
Right.
That's
for sure.
That's that gold we talk about in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, is that I have that gold to me to where I have a lot of experiences with things. So I get to always say me too to almost any new guy that comes in these rooms, man. And that is my job, is to help the next guy. One thing I'll say is my sponsor put it to me the best. He said, my job is to walk you 12 steps closer to God. And your job is to reach your hand back and walk another man 12 steps closer to God. And that's it.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Powerful.
That's powerful, man.
Yeah, I like that, dude. Well, like I said, man, I could listen to you talk all day, dude. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you working with us. I know we're a little unorganized here, but such is life. C'est la vie.
Yeah, go get something to eat.
Yeah, right, right.
I could listen to you all day long,
See,
but I'm a
okay,
little
yeah.
hungry.
That's how I just heard him say that. Right.
I love it. All right. Well, hey, guys, I appreciate you guys coming out. Be sure and check out Frank's book. And what was the book again?
The Autobiography of Recovering Skinhead.
Okay.
There you
I
go.
am going to check that out for sure. Thanks again for coming on the show. Dusty, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you for coming.
Thanks,
and you almost spoke into the mic the entire time.
You know,
You did.
progress, not perfection.
Exactly, dude. You are there, buddy.
Did you just big book a microphone?
That's right. And Chad, as always, thank you for making fun of me.
Yeah, man, for
Yeah.
sure, dude. For
'Cause
sure.
That's really why I have you here, so I can be openly mocked publicly. All right. Hey guys, be sure and check us out next week. We've got Bradley coming up. And then we've got some ladies from the Oxford House organization coming up next week.
Awesome.
But Bradley registered a bartender at It'll Do.
Yeah.
He's a good dude.
Cool.
But yeah, that'll be fun. But in the meantime, be sure and subscribe. And then remember, kids, there is no magic pill for sobriety, because if there was, we would all take too many.
We ought to take way too many.